Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for an information session about Milton Hershey School. And for those of you who have some familiarity with Milton Hershey School, we're hoping that we can build on that and help you be brand ambassadors for Milton Hershey School, because as you'll hear about as we go through our presentation, we really would love to have word-of-mouth support in terms of helping us to find staff as well as students. So we're hoping to have more brand ambassadors to get the word out about Milton Hershey School. So I'm Nichols. I've been with Milton Hershey School for 18 years, always in staff recruiting and never bored in those 18 years. And with me is Josh Pearson.
Yes, Josh Pearson. My official title at Milton Hershey School is the House Parent Hiring Manager, but I started my career out at Milton Hershey way back in 2012. It's hard to believe it's been that long, as a house parent in middle division. So my wife and I moved from Pittsburgh with 2 little ones in tow and did the middle school house parent thing for 5.5 years. I actually did Dairy Presbyterian is near and dear to my heart. I actually spent a year during COVID doing maintenance here on the building. So if I am a familiar face, that's why. You've seen me here probably roaming the building from 21 to 22, and now I'm in this position working to hire good house parents.
So what we'd like to do is start out with a beautiful video that was produced by the school that just gives an overview of the school entirely.
What if there was a place where every kid got a chance to be great? Where everything they do is meant to help us? There is a place, and there's no other place like it. It's my school, Milton Hershey School. Let me start from the beginning. Our founders were Milton Hershey, the famous chocolate maker, and his wife Catherine. They wanted to help children who didn't have much, to create a place that was safe, where nothing would hold kids back. The Hersheys believe learning shouldn't have a price, so we don't pay anything to go to school here. Everything we need is taken care of, even a place to live with other students our age, with caring house parents to watch over us. In our homes, we learn to accept and appreciate one another, because the things that make us different bring us together. Our classrooms, they have no walls. We learn by doing and exploring through programs that give us an early start on college and our careers. We get to grow our talents, play with passion, and we always celebrate our success. You see, we're more than a school. We're a community. We listen, serve, and find our voices. We change lives. I know, because this place changed mine. Milton Hershey once said that if he could provide for 100 kids, it would be worth it. But look at us now, more than a century of memories. 11,000 graduates and counting, and there's still more good to do. Because here, we have the chance to be great. I want to be great. And you? Well, you can be next.
So that Be Your Greatest Self theme is something that we all keep in mind. We encourage our students to be their greatest self as well as our staff. As many of you know, the school was founded in 1909. Milton Hershey credits Catherine for the idea. In fact, he even had her sign a deed of trust. Back in the day, women didn't typically sign legal documents, but he wanted her signature on it as well. And as many of you know, Mr. Hershey grew up sort of in a disadvantaged situation himself, apprenticed out at a very young age, found candy making, had several failed businesses before Lancaster Caramel, where had huge success, and then took the biggest gamble of his life with chocolate, and we all know how wonderfully that turned out. So at this point, the school, which was founded in 1909, serves 2,100 children, and we would like to expand to 2,500 if we could have more staff and students. And it's still very much focused on trades education. Josh will talk about that a little bit more. So it's a very career-focused education, and also it's a home. Mr. Hershey had gone out and toured other similar schools back in the day that served orphan boys. Back then it was very common for boys to lose their fathers in mining accidents, farming accidents, had no way to learn a trade, and so Milton and Catherine wanted them to be able to learn a trade. And they also wanted them to have a home. Mr. Hershey looked at other boarding schools like Girard, and he said, no, I want this to be a home. And so that's one of the reasons why you see Milton Hershey School set up with all the various homes that you see both on the South Campus and the North Campus. So at this point, we are the largest home school in the United States. We are cost-free to students and their families. They pay nothing. As Josh will talk about, here it is. Home, food, clothing, healthcare, extracurriculars, and the education is provided cost-free, pre-K through 12th grade. We also, too, recently launched Catherine Hershey Schools for Early Learning. I think many of you have heard about that in the news. The Hershey site has opened, serving 150 babies through toddlers, and we are going to open Harrisburg next year and 4 others after that. So it's really an amazing gift that he left, and we are expanding, as I mentioned, on the early end with Early Learning Center, and then also postgraduate support. Back in the day when Mr. Hershey founded it, each boy would learn a trade. They would get a suitcase and $100, and they were ready for the world. That looks a little bit different today. So we do have postgraduate support for our students, including the ability to earn their college tuition so that they can get trade schools, certifications, 4-year degrees, and really be truly ready for success once they graduate. And that is the goal, that they have learned the skills and the character so that they can go out and be fulfilling and productive, to find that they can take care of themselves, their families, and also ideally be positive contributors in their communities. Service learning is a big part of that. In fact, I just got back from chaperoning a trip last week. Took 11 kids down to Kentucky, and they did some really tough things there in terms of serving, and it was a great experience for all involved. So with that, I'll turn it over to Josh, and he's going to talk a little bit more now about the program specifically.
We're going to watch another video and then I'll
Milton
talk.
Hershey School, founded in 1909 by our founders, Milton and Catherine Hershey. That means we've been around for 110 years and counting. We are located in Hershey, Pennsylvania. We are a co-ed private school who serves top-notch education for students pre-K to 12th grade. We currently have over 2,000 students who come from low income, and there's more students here who can't wait to share the information with you.
The mission of the Milton Hershey School is to provide a safe and nurturing environment that provides a home, a school, and a family for students all in one. Milton and Catherine Hershey weren't able to have children of their own, so they created this school for orphan boys. The legacy that they left continues to live on in over 10,000 successful alumni and students like us.
One thing that helps unite the students, staff, and alumni here at MHS is the school's sacred values. 2 of these are commitment to mission and positive spirit. Commitment to mission is basically working hard to be the best you can be and setting goals and all that. And what positive spirit is having an optimistic outlook on everything, even though you have to persevere through hardship.
The other 2 sacred values at MHS are integrity and mutual respect. Integrity is living every day by strong moral principles. Mutual respect is living by the golden rule, treating others the way you want to be treated. This is something Milton Hershey truly believed in and is recognized in the school's pledge today.
Here at MHS, we have a lot of great and meaningful programs. One of those programs include the CTE, the Career Technical Education. Milton Hershey wanted to provide students the opportunity to have hands-on experience, co-op, and internships. At Milton Hershey School, we have 12 of these career pathways. For example, we have culinary, we have automotive technology, and the one I'm in is law, public, and safety. I believe these 12 CTE pathways are valuable for all the students at MHS.
Another program here that we have at MHS is STEAM. It stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, Arts, and Math. It incorporates creativity into real-world based learning. Another program that we have here is Agriculture and Environmental Education. It allows students who are interested in farming, agriculture, or environmental issues to incorporate their learning into working with cattle or working with produce.
Athletics are another program here at MHS. We have multiple sports, like we have soccer and basketball and football. There's just a whole bunch of them. Then we have awesome facilities as well. Like we have an ice skating rink, we have multiple baseball fields and courts for basketball players. And the coaching that goes into it is awesome, and they even become mentors to some of our students. And we have such a unique bond with them, and it's great. And other program students can get in is SGA, or Student Government Association. That's a really awesome experience for our students.
Another program that we have at Milton Hershey School is our visual and performing arts programs. So we call this VPA here. The VPA program is amazing at MHS. There's so many different things that you can do. We have plays, we have dramas, you can play an instrument, and our choir is really good. It's something that anybody can do, and something that all the way from the pre-K grade to 12th grade that you can be a part of.
Home life is a very big part of the Milton Hershey experience. You're placed in a home with 11 to 12 other students that become more like friends, more like family to you after a certain amount of time. You have a couple there, which is your house parents, which presides over you, helps you reach your goals, cook for you, things like that. And once you become a senior, you move on to transitional living, which is an apartment-like thing where you get more of the responsibilities of post-graduation type living. A lot of what home life is social emotional learning. So it teaches you how to, live on your own, or trying to socialize with others, and just simple things like that to make you more of who you are. And it's a really great experience, and it made me who I am today.
Another aspect to the MHS life is the year-round experience program. Here we call this Wiry. Wiry gives students the opportunity to stay active in the MHS community. This includes during the academic school year and also during breaks. Students have the opportunity, for example, during summer to participate in sports camps. And all students come back 2 weeks before the academic school year begins in order to participate in these activities.
The Whole Child approach is a really big experience at MHS because we get proper nutrition, 2 clothing fitings per year, and we also get support from our mentors, parent sponsors, our house parents. In addition to that, we are internationally recognized for our campus safety, which reassures me that no matter where I go, I know that I'm protected and I don't have to worry.
Here at MHS, the main goal is to become as prepared as possible for life after graduation, whether it be college or whether it be the field of work. At MHS, we're provided with supportive staff, tools, and many opportunities to become better people and live a successful life.
So this is us, Milton Hershey School, MHS. This is where friendships are made, and we are a family, and we come together, and we are the continuing legacy of Milton Hershey. We are rooted in tradition, from our class spring, our cocoa bean game, our homecoming game, and I couldn't be more proud to be a part of the living legacy of Milton Hershey.
So one of the things I love about Milton Hershey School is that idea that when Milton and Catherine started it over 100 years ago, they had that idea of putting students in student homes, creating this kind of family-like environment, this family feel to it. I think it would have probably made more financial sense or fiscal responsibility to kind of build huge dorms and throw a bunch of students in there and kind of do it that way. And yet they saw the value, they saw the importance of the family structure in that house parent role. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. Just want to talk briefly about kind of the structure of home life. Who is it that we serve? Again, I think it's amazing. We just had graduation a few weeks back, 193 students that graduated. And you're talking about students that come from situations where graduation might not have even been something that was on their radar. They may have been the first one that ever graduated, even high school, in their family. And here they are graduating and thinking about what life looks like after high school, whether that's career focused, whether that's going off to college. And again, college for some of these students was a pipe dream. And here they are being able to do that because of the funds that Milton Hershey provides for them and the structure and all of those life skills that they were taught. So let's talk a little bit about structure. All of our students do reside on campus. It is a fully residential school, as most of you probably know, you're well aware of. Again, the history of Milton Hershey School and Derry Presbyterian, these are foundational pieces in the Hershey area. I think it's a beautiful thing that there's so much history that's here. I'm a history buff, so I love that. I loved my year that I got to work here. I got to work on this really old building, was just incredible. And now I get to work for an organization that, again, has been around for over 100 years. It's just such a privilege. So we serve students 4 years old or pre-K all the way up through seniors in high school. 11th graders, pre-K through 11th grade live in what we call student homes with house parents, couples. Elementary division is pre-K through 4th grade, middle division is 5th through 8th grade, and then senior division, of course, is 9th through 11th grade. Our TL program is something that has been established in the last, 20 years. It's really something that's been an incredible boost to the program that we're offering to our students. For a long time, students just continue to live in that student home environment where house parents kind of telling you like when to get up and when to do your chores and when to do homework and when to go to bed at night. And it's not really realistic to going and doing life on your own. And so the TL program is really great because it gives students the opportunity to really learn additional life skills and do it independently. Again, someone's not kind of standing over you, making sure these things are happening. Our TL students will do things like having a budget and going and doing their own shopping, doing all of their own cooking, doing all of their laundry. Again, doing it on their own, doing their own homework. You know, if you want to do it, great. If you don't, that's going to be on you, right? Real life kind of consequences, both good and bad, to the decisions that they're making. So that's been a great program at Milton Hershey School to help students with that next step as they leave MHS. We've got an amazing community of folks. I'd always say anything it takes to run a small town, it takes to run Milton Hershey School. That's from our clothing fitting folks to our campus safety and security department, to the house parent home life, and of course all of our scholastic staff that goes along with helping to teach and raise our students. Really what we want to focus on this morning as we talk to you, and you may know quite a bit about Milton Hershey School, I do think there are a lot of misconceptions. It always amazes me as I interact with folks that have lived in Hershey their whole lives, right? They have these misconceptions about what the school is. You know, whether it was something they heard a long time ago, or, you know, the students that we serve, like, you know, they're bad students, or they're students that have gotten in trouble in some way, and that couldn't be further from the truth. These are just students that really need some additional support. You know, maybe home isn't the greatest, their situation at home doesn't allow for them to thrive. I always say, you know, what Milton Hershey School does for a lot of students, it takes them from a place where, in some cases, they're surviving. They don't know if the electricity is going to be on. They don't know if they're going to, you know, when their next meal is going to be. It takes them from situations where, you know, 11, 12, 13-year-olds, you know, 7-year-olds are thinking about these very real life things, and doesn't allow them to focus on the things that a 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old should be focusing on, like homework, like having fun, like making friends. And MHS really allows students to do that. So let's talk a little bit about the house parent role. I think that is a loaded question. What is a house parent? That's a really hard question to answer. I did the job for 5.5 years. Worked with middle school girls the first year that we came in. We moved from Pittsburgh, like I said. Immediately jumped in, worked with middle school girls, and then ultimately got placed in a middle school boys home. That, of course, has its challenges that come along with it, but it's so beautiful and so rewarding. That what is a house parent question is loaded because there's so much to it, right? We could spend all day talking about what is a house parent, all of the different hats that you wear, all of the different responsibilities that you have while you're in that position. But ultimately, I always say it's, you know, when I think about my time as a house parent, it's really doing life with our students. And we always looked at our students as an extension of our family. We always looked at them as members of our family, and so here we are. I have 2 little ones of my own and 12 middle school boys, so 14 students. I always say there's a lot of pressure on me, right? It's a big responsibility. You've got, you know, 14 little pairs of eyes that are kind of watching your every move, watching your every response, and again, that's a big responsibility, but one that I saw as just a huge privilege. For a lot of our students, they were seeing kind of what a relationship, a healthy marriage looks like for the first time. 11 of my 12 boys that we had for 4 years, kind of our core group of guys that we had during that time, 11 of the 12 boys did not have a dad that was actively involved in their life. So you talk about, for me, kind of the responsibility that I felt to kind of be this male role model in their life. So when you talk about what is a house parent, it's kind of all those things and more. Sometimes it's just the little things. It's the getting them up, making sure they're up in the morning, making sure their chores and their responsibilities are getting done. It's making sure that their breakfast is done, and all of those things. Those daily needs are met, transporting them. You think about all the different activities. I think about where my kids are at. I have a freshman, almost, you know, going to be a sophomore in high school, and an 8th grader. And I think about all the activities just the 2 of them have. And then here I was doing that with 12 additional students. All of the sports and music and theater, those things are beautiful, but that really is a huge part of what you do. Just kind of, again, doing life with them, making sure their homework's done, making sure they have their medication, all of the things that go along with that. Instilling life skills are sacred values, and things like integrity, things like mutual respect, responsibility, trying to not only teach those things, but also model those as well is such a huge part of what a house parent does on a regular basis. Of course, recreation and fun, we always try to have a blast with our boys, doing fun activities, whether that was going to the Swatty, doing floats down the Swatty, or what we call creek stomping, where they could just look for crayfish and kind of just, splash around on these really hot days like we're having now. That was such a huge part of what we did. And then, of course, collaborating with all of the other folks and great supports that we have at Milton Hershey School. So house parent schedule, I started to talk about this a little bit, what a day in the life looks like. Again, as I think about some of those early mornings that we had with our boys, it's getting up, getting them ready for school. I always say a Milton Hershey School student will do more before they leave for school in a day than a lot of kids will do in a week. Our students would get up, they would make their bed, they would make sure all their clothes were put away. They would come down and start to do additional chores and responsibilities around the house. And that's all before breakfast. Then we'd eat breakfast, there was breakfast cleanup. There's a lot that goes into that morning routine. We would do devotions with our boys in the mornings. And then, of course, they would go off to school. We would drive them up to school or drive them over to school. And that's when we as house parents had our unscheduled time. So from 8:30 to 2, Monday through Friday, is when house parents really have their off time while students are at school. That's a time just to sometimes take a nap, sometimes refuel your own tank, sometimes spend time with your spouse or your own family. It's a time for house parents to be able to do that. Afternoon, evening, of course, after school, lots of after school activities, whether that's tutoring, sports teams. We compete with all the local schools, with Hershey and Lower Dauphin and Palmyra. So we compete with those schools and very active as far as those things go. Afternoons were a little bit more laid back, and then we get into our evening routine of eating our meal. We would then have shower time, study time, before really heading to bed at night. So that's kind of was our normal weekday rotation. Weekends, of course, are a little bit more laid back, not quite as structured. That's when we would really build those relationships with our guys, get out and about, do those things like I mentioned, creek stomping, or going to a local park and playing basketball, or taking our boys to a movie, or whatever it might be, fun activities on the weekends. Our schedule that our house parents work is currently a 9-day on, 3-day off rotation, so it's a little bit different. Not your traditional 5 days on, 2 days off that so many of us are used to. 9 days on, 3 days off is actually a beautiful thing. It used to be when I was a house parent, 12 days on and 3 days off. I think that was a good change that the school recognized. House parents were getting burned out. It was a lot for house parents. And so I always said, coming back into the role that I'm in now, hiring for this position, talking about it, interviewing folks on a regular basis, if it was still a 12-3 schedule, I don't know if I could, in good faith, do the position I am now. That change was huge, and it's helped our attrition tremendously to where our house parents are sticking around, and they're able to do the job in a healthier way, where they have more energy. They can go out and do those things as opposed to being tired and exhausted. So various assignments. When you first come into Milton Hershey School, you get hired for the role, you get hired for the position. Everybody comes into this, what we call flex house parent role. And that's an interesting role in the sense that what we want it to be is we want it to be an opportunity where you can get into as many different homes as possible when you're brand new to it. We want you to come in and we want you to get experience seeing and working with house parents that have been there. You can glean wisdom and guidance from those folks that have done this for quite some time. So that flex house parent role is really great for that. It is challenging in the sense that you don't have just one home that you're working with. You do bounce within a division from home to home. That can be tricky and challenging at times. Then, of course, the progression of that is being placed in a triflex. A triflex is interesting in the sense that you kind of know what your schedule's like. You know where you're going to be on a daily basis, but you bounce between 3 specific homes. So I'm in home A for 3 days, home B for 3 days, home C for 3 days, and then I have my 3 days off. And then I run that same rotation again with those same homes, is how that works. And then, of course, the ultimate goal for house parents, right? The reason that people come to Milton Hershey School is because you want to get your own home. You want to really be able to invest and dive into building relationships and rapport with those students that you're working with on a daily basis. Again, I think about my guys. In fact, we're going to see one of our guys who graduated in 2020. He was a pandemic graduate. He's coming, he just got out of the military, and he's coming to visit us today, so it's a beautiful thing. When I think about the relationships that we still have with our guys, and being an assigned house parent allowed us to build those relationships. So you're working with anywhere between 8 to 13 students, depending on the division you're in. We always had a steady 12 students that we worked with, give or take 1 or 2. But pretty much for the most part, during our 5.5 years here, it was 12 students in the student home. And that sounds like a lot, and believe me, that is a lot. There are days, I would say, in this position where, you say, they can't pay me enough to do this job, right? This is a lot, this is overwhelming. And then in the same notion, that same afternoon, I could be saying, oh my gosh, I can't believe I get paid to do this job, right? It's, when days like this, when you can take them to the swimming pool and let the kids run around and have fun. So it's kind of those two things and everything in between. Again, it's doing life the same way folks raise their own family, and that sometimes came with beautiful blessings, and sometimes came with really hard challenges. That's the life of a house parent. So as you look at that structure and how that's set up, challenging and rewarding, like I said, kind of everything in between. It definitely is a job that requires grit. That's a word we throw around a lot. We want to teach our students that. That's also required of the house parents themselves. Perseverance, willingness to stick with it. The schedule can be tough, especially that flex schedule when you first show up on campus can be tricky. This is where building meaningful relationships. One of the nice bonuses that I realized when we came here, we moved from Pittsburgh not knowing anybody at Milton Hershey School. We kind of took this leap of faith. We said, all right, we're going to do this. We're going to uproot. We sold our home and moved out here onto campus with the idea of mission in mind, right? We wanted to invest in the lives of kids. We wanted to make a positive impact in the lives of kids, and that's really what drew us and led us and motivated us. And one of these really amazing bonuses was this idea that we quickly built this amazing community and realized the amazing people that are not just on Milton Hershey's campus, but the Hershey community at large. Just what an amazing place this is to live. I love Pittsburgh. My family's still back in Pittsburgh. I think there are amazing people in Pittsburgh. I never want to move back there. I love it here. To me, this community is really second to none. It's really, really incredible. And so the support that's there, again, within the Milton Hershey community, but also the Hershey community at large is just really incredible. Talked about flexing a little bit, won't go into that again, and won't read through all of these things. I do want to talk about, again, the rewards, seeing the light bulb moments. There's nothing more beautiful than when a kid, you've been working with a student, right? You're daily trying to teach them these lessons, and you're modeling these things, and it could be something as simple as like doing their chore and doing it correctly, right? How they make their bed, those type of things, right? That we take for granted a little bit. You don't necessarily see as successes or wins. But when a student gets it, right, when they finally figure it out, they're like, oh my gosh, like he's doing the chore by himself. He's doing it right. Like that's a really beautiful thing. It really is. And it takes a lot of hard work. I always say, if you go into a student home and you see students that are like, they shake your hand and they're respectful and they're doing their chores, doing them well, there's probably been a lot of work from the house parents that have gone into getting students to those. But as a house parent, I mean, that is so motivating to see students. To see a student go from being a D student to a B student. To see them grow in those ways. One of our guys came to us as a 5th grader from the Wilkes-Barre, Scranton area, and just super nice kid, but really, really far behind academically. He was in 5th grade, but he was reading at like a 1st or 2nd grade level. Just really, really far behind. I kid you not, by the end of the first year he was at Milton Hershey School, he was completely caught up to grade level with things like reading and math and his academics, and graduated and went off to Penn State Harrisburg and went off to college. Again, a kid that probably had no dreams of being able to even do that, and here he is, going and living that dream. It's a beautiful thing. When I just mentioned graduation, a lot of alum come back for that. A lot of alum come back for homecoming. Seeing our graduates go off into the real world. I've got students spread out all over the United States, all over the world, really. Like I said, I just had one of our guys that got out of the military who was over in South Korea for a year, stationed over there. I've got a guy at Georgetown University. He's about to go into his senior year. He's doing an internship in New York City this summer with JP Morgan. I've got a student that graduated from Technical Institute out in California, and he invited us to come out and see him graduate. He's working on cars out in California. I've got a guy at Howard University. I've got guys kind of all over the area doing work. We've got guys that are cooks. We've got guys that are working at warehouse. And it's a beautiful thing, all of those things, right? Because they're out there, they're working, guy loading UPS trucks. He works hard every day. And to me, that's a beautiful thing, right? Where all of our guys are at, the idea that they took all those life skills, all of those sacred values that we tried to live out and to teach them, and they're actually living those things out and doing those things is a beautiful thing. And I don't know that there's another role that exists, another position that exists, where you have that same level of opportunity to invest in the life of a student. I did youth ministry for a number of years at a church back in Pittsburgh, and that was a beautiful thing. Ministry was a great thing, but I would get my kids for an hour or two on a Wednesday night, an hour or two on a Sunday morning, an hour on a Sunday night, and then occasional events and activities. And that was awesome. It was great. I would love to think I made a positive impact in their lives, right? But when you think about daily living life with these students and walking through the really hard things and celebrating the wins and celebrating the big things, there's nothing else like it that exists. And so I love my time doing that. And I love that I now get to talk about this job. I love that I now get to talk to people that don't know a lot about what this position is, and make them aware of what the house parent role is. So let's talk about qualifications. I really want to focus on those first three that are highlighted there. Of course, we're looking for experience, and there's other things like having a driver's license and high school diploma or GED. Those things you can kind of see on there. But to me, the first three are kind of the big ones, because that's right off the bat as you talk again, as you spread awareness, and that's really the goal here. Unless you want to be house parent, I'd love to talk with you afterwards, or we'd love for you to call us. We'll give you our information at the end. But really, it's for you folks that are in the area as you go and you interact with the community, really to just have awareness of what the role is, of maybe what the qualifications are. Maybe you had no idea. What does it take to be a house parent? So let's talk about these first three. Legally married for at least 2 years. There's something to that idea, again, for us, of a couple coming in and just, again, living out what that healthy marriage, that healthy relationship, and kind of doing it together. I can't imagine trying to be a house parent on my own without my wife, Sarah. For us, it was kind of the things that I was strong at, she may have been weak at. You find this great balance of things that she was really strong and that I was weak in. You really have this balance and you're doing it together. I always used to joke with her, you're my favorite spouse and now you're also my favorite coworker, because you're kind of doing this life together. But so legally married for 2 years, that actually is a change that for years and years and years, Barb, I don't know how long it was, but it was a really long time where it was legally married for 3 years. And we've realized basically based on some societal shifts, also coming out of the pandemic when people kind of put off having their wedding because they actually they wanted people to be able to attend their wedding, right? And they put it off for a year, 2 years, 3 years. We realized, with some of those shifting changes where people are in relationships a lot longer before they get married, that 2 years is really a good number for us. At least 27 years of age. That hasn't changed. That's been around for a really long time. Again, we want some life experience. We want a little bit of a gap there between the age of our students. You think about juniors in high school that are 17 years old, sometimes 18 years old, and if you're 23, 24, there's not much of a gap there. And so we want some life experience that comes along with being 27 or older. A lot of folks ask, is there like an end age to that? And I say, absolutely not. We hire folks of all different ages between, after that 27 years of age. We do not, of course, discriminate on age at all. We love and that really is a big portion of our house parents, when older folks who've kind of raised their own children, who have done life with them, who've maybe retired from their first career, but they still feel like they have energy. They still feel like they want to give back and do something and be that positive impact in the lives of students. They then come and do this job. That's a huge portion of our house parent community. And then that last one there, no more than 3 dependents residing full-time. That's been a big change as of the last 3 months. For years and years and years, it was, I think since about 2005, 2007, it was, you can only have 2 dependents. So when I was a house parent between 2012 to 2017, we could only have two of our own children that were with us. And again, based on some shifts and some shifting and some changes, we realized if you can do the job with 2 kids and you're good at it, you're probably going to be good at it with a third child as well. And so we want to give folks that opportunity. That opens up a lot more. Like I said, experience working with students is a huge part of this. And when I say experience working with students, that could be serving here at church, right? Working with your youth here at church, teaching Sunday school. That can be being a coach. That can be going to a local boys and girls club and mentoring and investing in the lives of kids. There are many ways that looks. It doesn't mean you have to be like full-time in social work. We certainly love when we get folks that apply that have had that experience or been a teacher for 20 years. That's amazing, that's awesome. That usually translates really well. But sometimes experience is just even one-on-one. Being a TSS or a BS, behavioral support specialist, where you're working one-on-one with that student who may have some challenges. Obviously, you've learned some skills and strategies and have that experience to be able to work with them. And then, like I said, all of those other things. The big one here, relocation to Hershey, of course. Again, I have been here since 2012. I love this place. I love Central PA, just the surrounding areas. To me, that sells itself, right? The idea of having to relocate here is just a huge plus. I think the schools in the area are a huge plus as well. I always tell people I don't have to sell. When potential house parents are getting ready to move here and they have kids of their own and they're asking questions like, what does the school system look like, the public school system? I mean, my kids are at LD, but I know Hershey, I know Palmyra, I know the schools in this area are just fantastic. And so when you think about moving here, that's such a huge bonus. And one I don't have to sell anybody on. Comp and benefits, of course, let's chat about that for a second. Starting salary for a couple is $87,650. And we, of course, folks get hung up on that number, and that's an important number because we all need to pay our bills and we all need to know how much money we're going to make. But along with that salary are a lot of other perks, including housing, which we all know what the housing market looks like right now. So the idea of moving to Hershey, Pennsylvania and having housing that's provided for you is pretty incredible. A 2 or 3 bedroom apartment, no cost. Relocation assistance, when you move here, we basically pay for you to move. We have folks that come from locally, but we also have folks that come from some of our bigger states that we have house parents that come from: Florida, California, Texas, Washington State. We've got people moving from all over the place. Medical, dental, vision benefits, of course. Again, I won't read through all of those things. Meals provided while you're on duty. Again, we know the cost of food and things like that, how much that's gone up. That's all included along with that salary. And so again, as you talk to people who may be interested, who may want to know more, those are just really good, that's really good information to have. And we have one more video here.
Hershey, Pennsylvania is a vibrant place to live and work.
Thanks to the generosity and the foresight of its founders, Milton and Catherine Hershey.
The town is known for having great schools and being an attractive and safe community to live in.
There are many events and resources that help build a strong sense of community.
Nestled in South Central PA, Hershey is close to several major cities, including Harrisburg, New York, Philadelphia, and Baltimore.
It's great for day trips. The urban appeal of those cities is a great complement to Hershey's natural settings.
Scenic running and biking trails, vast farmland and woodlands, and a number of parks create a picturesque and pleasant living and recreational environment.
Some would say Hershey is also the greatest employment destination. There are 4 different employers in 4 different industries, all founded by Milton Hershey, that provide a solid and diverse economy for the region. There's the Hershey Company, Penn State Health, Milton S. Hershey Medical Center, Milton Hershey School, and Hershey Entertainment and Resorts.
The resources available through Hershey Entertainment and Resorts makes for a sweet assortment of year-round entertainment. There's the Giant Center and Hershey Park Stadium for concerts, performances, and other major events, the Hershey Theater for Broadway and other productions, Hershey Bears Hockey for live sports action, Hershey Park, Zoo America, numerous statewide athletic competitions, and much more.
Milton and Catherine Hershey wanted a healthy and happy lifestyle for all of their employees, as well as Hershey residents. Milton created the MS Hershey Foundation to provide quality public education that still exists today. The local volunteer fire company and the public library are also modern features that add to the quality of living Milton desired for all citizens of Derry Township.
Now that's why they say this is the sweetest place on earth. Welcome to Hershey.
This makes you proud to see something like that, right? So what you've just seen is our presentation that we share with candidate couples to give you a nice overview about Milton Hershey, the community, and the position. And I really appreciate that Josh can talk about the house parenting position from having lived it himself. The timing, Jack, for you to invite us here is perfect because we have 175 student homes to keep staffed. As you remember, we have flex couples, right? So we actually need more than 175 couples. In fact, the ideal state is for us to have 240 couples on staff. It is a challenging position to fill. It's not everyone that steps forward and says, yes, we as a couple would like to take on 12 children. It has been complicated by the fact that the biggest job board in the United States, Indeed, refuses to carry our advertisement. That cut off about 90% of our applicant flow. They did not like the fact that we require married couples, and so they said, you're off. And so we've really been working hard to identify alternate ways to get out in front of people and get this message out. And that again is the importance of you being brand ambassadors, those of you online as well as physically in the room. If you can help us get the word out to potential couples, they can be early in their careers, later in their careers. It's all about really skills and passion for working with youth and making a difference in their lives. So now if you'll each put your brand ambassador hat on, and if you were going to be representing a position, what do you need to know? Questions? And it can be broader than just the position. Yeah.
This may be a Josh question. When you were a house parent, how do you divide your time among, say, 12 or 14 kids? Like, do you go to sporting events? I can see why you need a husband and wife because one might have to stay at the house and one could go out and do something. How do you give kids, equal time in doing certain events?
Yeah, great question, Jack. So 2 parts to that. Number 1 is divide and conquer. You really do. You have to kind of figure out, that's where communication with you and your spouse is so important. That idea of figuring out that daily schedule and how that's going to look, how that's going to work. Communication amongst yourselves, but also communication to your students, right? Making sure that everybody's on the same page. House parents have come up with really creative ways and interesting ways to get everybody on the same page, whether that's a whiteboard that is right there near the exit of the house where everybody's walking out and they can look to see exactly what's happening that day, when they're getting picked up. And it's this idea of kind of having a schedule and being prepared, but then also being willing to be flexible because sometimes those schedules change. And the other part to that, the divide and conquer is one, so working with your spouse really closely to make sure that you're thinking about who's picking up, who's cooking dinner, who's figuring all of this out and making that work. And there are supports in place at school, but the other part of that too is I think the word intentionality, being intentional with your time, and that's intentional with all the relationships you have going on. That's intentionality with each of the students that you're working with. So I think about my 12 guys. There were days where I knew, okay, so-and-so is having a really bad day. I need to make sure that I'm intentional about spending some specific time with him. My best conversations, my best moments with students were not, I like to think they were the great speeches that I gave to my guys when they were all sitting around listening to me. It was not that. When we get together with our guys, they never, believe it or not, they never bring up the speeches that I gave. It's the moments of just going and knowing a kid was down and going like, hey, let's go throw football and like, let's chat while we're throwing a football. Being intentional in those moments. You're intentional with your spouse, making sure that you are having time together, time to communicate, time to make sure that you're on the same page. And then for me, I had 2 children of my own, so also being very intentional about my time, finding that fine line, that fine balance between working, right, and living this life, but also making sure that I'm giving my son Ezra and my daughter Esther the time that they deserve and need as well. And that can be tricky. That can be challenging because there are days where, all right, I have all the intentionality to spend this time after school with my own kids and just ask them how their day was. But meanwhile, there's something a little more serious or something I'm dealing with my guys, and I don't necessarily get that time right away. So that's where that can be challenging at times. But always making sure I go back and spend that time. I think it's just intentionality is the word. And again, this is where it's beautiful that you work with your spouse, where you can say, hey, I haven't really got a chance to talk to our kids yet. I want to make sure that I'm able to do that. And so kind of working it out amongst the two of you.
If I can elaborate on that too, Josh, I've heard you and other house parents talk about the house parent community.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you're not able to take a certain kid a certain place,
Yeah.
but it's the community that comes together. You wanna expand?
Absolutely, yeah. Even to this day, we've been out of house parenting for 6 years now. I haven't done it since 2017. But we still have some of our best friends that are in this area are still house parenting. Our kids grew up together, and so in those moments when, let's say we were off duty, we would often gather some of the other house parent kids and say, hey, we're just, we're going out to Sky Zone, or we're going out for dinner tonight. Can your kids, would you mind if they tag along? We're like, mind, like, please, like, no, that would be amazing. So again, that community of support that's there, just in helping you raise your kids and helping you be the best house parent you can be. Even if it sounds cliche, but like, we ran out of eggs, we ran out of bread, like calling your neighbor, right? Calling that home next to you, or calling that friend that's in the neighborhood and saying, hey, is there any chance we could borrow a loaf of bread? Or we need some sugar for these cookies, or whatever it might be. It's an amazing community. Hey, we're having transportation issues. We're both kind of being pulled in two different directions, but we have a kid at tutoring that needs picked up. Figuring out what other house parent might be going up to pick up at tutoring and can bring your student back. So just navigating, figuring it all out, but knowing that you have support that's in place is just huge.
I remember when my two daughters were in sports that we loved watching them and they loved us being there. I would imagine you've experienced some of that.
Oh, absolutely. And that's where I think it's, when you create an environment that feels like a family, you're doing that together. So like when our kids would have activities at school, everybody in the van, we're going to go watch, Esty and her play or her skit or her musical. Same thing with our kids. When our boys were having activities, sporting events, we were always there. We felt like it was like a daily thing, but again, when you raise your own kids, to your point, Jack, you're running, you're getting them to practice, you're doing all the things that a parent would do. You're just doing it on a larger scale. But we tried to make every activity and event we could. Even when we were off duty, a lot of times we would show up to our guys' sporting events because, again, we loved them and cared about them, and that's where we wanted to be in those moments. We wanted to be supporting them during whatever that activity was. But again, intentionality, I think, is a huge part of that. Just, no, this is what we want, so we're going to make this a priority. We're going to make that important, and that's then how we kind of ran our home.
I have a question. On the Venice campus that they recently added, now do you have like your own tennis courts and swimming pool and that up there, or do you bring them down to the main campus?
So yeah, we do. It'd be really nice because that's where I lived up on the North Campus, Legacy Campus. That's where all of Middle Division is at over there on that side, and we do not have the same amenities, if you will, that are there. So yeah, that's a little bit more challenging, especially this time of year when Hershey is 10,000 people more driving in the area, and that can be tricky, kind of crossing town. But you figure out all the little back roads and ways to make it work. And when you're going to the pool, you don't mind if it's an extra 10-minute drive, right? It's not so bad.
And then as far as the school building, elementary, middle, and high school, they're each self-contained. So each school has their own cafeteria, their own library, their own gymnasiums, their own indoor swimming pool, because everyone is required to learn how to swim as a life skill. But some of the bigger things like the outdoor community pool, the folks on the North Campus do need to come down to the South Campus. So I'm sorry, I think there was a question back there.
I was just gonna ask, on the 3 days that you have off, you're still in your apartment, kind of. How does that work?
That's tricky. We used to have, you find little tricks. We actually used to put soundproof blankets over our doors because you can hear the boys on the other side. And when I'm off duty, like, I'll deal with whatever I need to deal with when I come back on duty, but when I'm off, you just need to refuel and retank. So you figure out little ways. A lot of our house parents have RVs, or they have places off site that they go to on their time off. We used to travel, again, I'm from Pittsburgh, so we'd go back and visit family back there. But there are rotations where we were off and we were just in our apartment, and you just kind of learn to, I don't know, deal with it isn't the right word. You just learn to kind of, that's how you do life. And it's funny because you walk out of your apartment and there's your boys outside, and you ask them how they're doing, are they making good choices, making good decisions, make sure they're being respectful, and then you hop in your car and you go with your family. But yeah, your apartment is attached to the student home. So it gets a little bit interesting at times. Great question.
Yeah, how
stratified, I guess is the word, are those 12 to 13 kids that you have in terms of age? I guess mentally I always thought that they'd be in kind of the same age bracket.
And you are, Charlie, that's correct. So there's never more than 3 grades between students. So like for me I worked in middle school. Middle school is 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. We never had a 5th grader, and the school doesn't do it. They don't have a 5th grader and an 8th grader together. Because if you've seen 5th graders, that's still elementary, and an 8th grader where my guys were bigger than me by the time they got to 8th grade. I was then looking up at them. Those are different worlds. 5th grade and 8th grade is a different world. So they never put those age groups together. They usually try to keep it, again, 2 years, 3 years tops. Same in elementary. You'll never have a 4-year-old with a 4th grader. It's always just that 3-year gap. The school's very intentional about that in the way that they do that.
The reason I bring this up is my father was the youngest of 15. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah,
Small family.
So,
Yeah.
well, yeah, but that's what we're talking about when you have 12 kids, right?
Yeah.
The same kind of thing. But my oldest cousin, my father's oldest cousin, the child of my oldest uncle, it was older than my father.
Yes.
Okay, so huge variation in terms of age. But also, you've got this group that has been taught a certain way of living, who are now largely adult and fall into the supporting cast for the younger ones, so that there's a larger, more consistent vision of the world, if you will. And so when you talk about the people in transitional living, my head is going, they could really extend that structure to the younger kids. But I'm going back and forth.
Yeah.
Do I want them limited, or do I want them distributed?
There are pros and cons to both of those models, and actually Milton Hershey did go with that model for a while, where it was kind of young ones all the way up through high school and kind of doing life like that. Ultimately, they landed in this spot where they feel like it's a better option to have kids that are closer in age. Now, one of the things I will say is, I think organically those types of things are happening, Charlie. So like, for example, when we were working with our middle school guys, we had a high school house that was kind of like a big brother house to us. And so on a monthly basis, and sometimes more than that, we would get together, whether they come to our house or we'd go to their home, we'd go and do an activity together. They were kind of, those 10th, 11th graders were really investing in the lives, and that was really the setup that was there, investing in the lives of our 5th, 6th, 7th graders. And our guys, just loved that. I mean, that was incredible, looking up to these older guys who were still trying to figure out life themselves, their own life and what that was going to look like, and making good choices and all that. But the idea that they would, take some time and spend it with our guys was huge. And so important. So I think organically some of that stuff is happening in their elementary homes. Some of our elementary house parents have been around and all of our division have been around a really long time. So sometimes those elementary house parents will have students that are in middle school or high school, and they'll bring them back. They'll bring their students that are now older back and have meals and activities and things like that. So organically, a lot of that interaction between younger and older is happening.
Yeah, just a different way. Yeah.
Just a different way, right? Not in that daily, this is kind of how we're running the student home.
Yeah, cool.
I was just wondering, how involved are the biological parents?
Is as involved as they want or uninvolved as they want. So we've got true orphans in the sense that we've got, like I had a guy that didn't really have family. So he lived on campus 365 days out of the year. He never left. And so being able to do Christmas with him and holiday, like it was a beautiful thing because he didn't really have anybody. And then we have guys that they could do a day visit or a weekend pretty much all the time, and their parents were their mom, dad, whoever was very involved. We call them sponsors because some of our kids, their sponsor is grandma or grandpa. Maybe mom and dad aren't even in the picture. Sponsor might be a brother or sister, a sibling that's a little bit older, that just sees Milton Hershey as an opportunity, aunts and uncles. But there are folks that are really highly engaged, very involved. They're here for every chance they get to be here with their student. They are. But then certainly folks that are really hands off and no, I left my kid there for a reason. You raised my kid.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You have to like deal with like teachers. Sometimes have a hard time with parents telling them what to do and that kind of thing. Like, it's my child and you're saying he can't wear whatever.
That's what I think for me, as I think about my time at Milton Hershey School, some of my most challenging moments and conversations were not with students, but with parent sponsors. Just because they're not in the moment, they don't see all the other things that are going on. They're only hearing maybe a one-sided story from their child that said, these people are so mean, this is what I did, this is the consequence I give. And trying to navigate both of those, right, where you're trying to hold to, I really want, the consequences there because I want you to learn from it, right? And then yet still trying to get that parent sponsor to understand why that decision was made. I always say at the end of the day with our parent, we had overall great relationships with our parent sponsors where we really were on the same page. I think once they realized how much we cared for their guys, they were on board. But at the end of the day, we can all agree we want what's best for your student. And that's the line that we would use all the time. At the end of the day, like, we want what's best for this student. And sometimes that means making a hard choice and a hard decision and giving a consequence that, guess what? It actually makes my life harder. I used to tell my guys that all the time. Me giving you a consequence and holding you accountable is actually way harder for me as a house parent, right? It would be so much easier for me just like, yeah, go ahead, just do it, fine. Than me actually, helping you to learn from that moment and holding you accountable in that moment. So yeah, that's a great question.
You mentioned tutoring a couple times real briefly. Do you have Milton Hershey have a tutoring program, or do you go outside for tutors?
So a lot of the times the scholastic staff will do tutoring after school. We don't necessarily do, and there, again, organically there can be student-to-student tutoring that happens, but most times it's through the scholastic staff that's built into the scholastic program. So we had specific days, like if a student was struggling in math, they would stay after like a Tuesday and Thursday after school, and that's built in. We also have sometimes, like before school, there's activities that are happening. So sometimes tutoring in the morning. We also have like music programs that happen in the morning before school starts. And so those things are built into, again, there's not much at Milton Hershey School that someone hasn't thought about or isn't kind of built into what we're doing. Even things like, medical appointments. People often wonder, like, when a student, does that mean I have to drive them to the med center or to the dentist? Well, number one, a lot of that stuff's built into the school itself. We've got a health center on campus. Each of the schools has its own medical staff that's there. So like oftentimes we would get an appointment for the middle of the day, right, when we're off duty, the students at school. Well, we don't have to worry about it because they're at school, and that's gonna take place while they're at school, whether that's on campus or somebody transporting them to where they need to be. So a lot of that's really built into the system and the program that's there.
Sorry, this is not a house parent question, but you mentioned theater. So are those productions open to the public?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. Usually you have to get tickets for them, just like you would for any of the local public schools. You have to go that route. But yeah, sporting events, music, theater, those type of things. We actually love when people come to watch and support our students.
I just don't see it advertised or in the...
They don't advertise a ton of it publicly. Usually it's word of mouth. We don't quite advertise the same level as the public schools do with those kind of things.
I think some of it fell off with COVID, and we need to get better about promoting those opportunities because the kids do work so hard at athletic and performing events and things. So just earmark in your head right now that it's generally a really special time is at Christmas in December. So watch for our Christmas time, lunchtime concerts in Founders Hall. And Founders Hall is reopened too. For a while that was closed for renovation, but you can come. I think it's 10 to 3 Monday through Friday. That is open, but yeah, you'll definitely want to check out our Christmas concerts. And generally the spring production for theater is on Mother's Day weekend. So watch for those opportunities. We love having people come see the kids perform.
Yes, absolutely. I'm gonna let you As we're
Okay.
kind of up against time here. Thank you for the questions, by the way, those are amazing. If there's additional questions, Barb's gonna give you a way to ask those.
Sure. So just getting back to hiring, we do hire on a rolling basis, typically maybe as often as 6 times in a year. It is a lengthy process, but it is important that we're highly selective to make sure that we're setting everyone up for success, both the couples who are going to be coming to campus as well as for the students. Typically takes 3 to 4 months to get through the process and get transitioned here at a minimum, sometimes longer. Anyone who's interested, both spouses start out by applying online. And then, as I mentioned, it's a lengthy process. There's a phone interview, there's an on-site interview that gives them to the opportunity to spend time in a student home and see firsthand what goes on and make sure that it's a two-way street, right? Some people come and they see and they say, oh, this isn't what I thought, and they opt out, and that's good because we want people to really understand the role. After they're here on campus, if they're moved forward, then we actually have someone go and interview them in their home, and that's a common practice. Like if you're applying to foster parent or adopt, an in-home interview is part of the process. We do the same thing, lengthy background check, and also just a basic medical screening. They do have to be able to lift at least 40 pounds, I think, shoulder height, 50-pound weight height, because there are some physical elements to the job. We have lots of information online, so you can direct people to the website, or you certainly can have them contact us. We can give you our contact information here, I think.
It's on there, houseparentrecruitment@mhs-pa.org. That's the best way. That email address is a great way if you have additional questions, or you have somebody that really is, that you know might be a great fit for house parenting, maybe just has a lot of questions. We'd love to start that conversation with them.
Yeah,
So-
about 10 seconds.
Okay, we're trying to grow the school, so please refer staff as well as students. We hope to go up to 2,500 students in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.